Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today back out in the shop, and we are working on our horizontal boring mill. And this is the cross slide screw that basically moves the big table on the top of the cross slide in and out. And if you remember from the disassembly video, we've got a little issue down here on the end where the teeth that allows you to engage with the tool to turn that, they're all stripped out. And I want to see what we can do about fixing that and getting this screw back to the way it's supposed to be. So I've got kind of an idea of a game plan, but before I really come up with a sound game plan, I need to get this thing taken apart where I can really see what's going on and then come up with a good game plan going forward. So let's get in here and see if we can get this whole end down here apart. There's basically the screw that comes up in here. We got a thrust bearing. There's a piece that kind of captures all this together, and we need to get this casting and all this stuff off the end of the shaft so that we can see what's going on and see about what we can do to repair it. So here's kind of what we're dealing with. You can see the remnants of kind of a spline back here behind this has been stripped out. That spline should extend out a little bit, and it allows for a tool like this to slide up on the end, engage the spline, and that's what you would turn this with. They had repaired this by putting this piece back on and kind of welding a piece of key stock in here, and they had made a special handle that would fit up over that key stock and turn it. You know, it was a solution, it worked, but my goal is I really want to get this thing back more like it was when it was originally made, and I get that spline put back in there. Again, until I get this out of there and really look at it, I don't know exactly how I'm gonna go about that. I got a couple of ideas, but I need to kind of see what's going on up underneath all this. So looks like we got a cap here. There's a set screw. I believe that if we take that off, this is going to slide off, but because of this key, it's in the way. We're just going to have to get the grinder, grind that off, and then see if we can slide that off. I think that once we take that set screw out, this will come off and it'll allow the screw to pull out the other end. We can get to our thrust bearing in there and probably get a new thrust bearing to replace that while we're at it. So let's see if we can get this thing taken apart. See if we can knock that off. There we go. That looks okay. Let's get a set screw and see if we can get that out of there now. All right, let's see if we can get this dial off the front. Okay, it's going to unscrew, it looks like. All right, that comes right off. So we got a thrust bearing in here. Yeah, that screws on to kind of take up the slop, and then you put the set screw in there to adjust it. Makes sense. Let's get this thrust bearing out. Hopefully I can find some new thrust bearings the same size. And I think that now, see, there's a race in there. Looks like there's a brace on that other piece too. Interesting. So that thrust bearing's got a little groove there for the balls to roll in, and it's kind of got a radius on the other end. It looks like we got the other half of the race is on this piece down here. All right, I just dropped this down onto the table where hopefully we can get this piece off now. Yeah, it should just slide off the end. There we go. And got another thrust bearing here. Looks like it's the same as the other one. And yeah, the race is up on the shaft. I'm just going to take some WD-40. I'm just kind of using it as a solvent right now to kind of just clean that up a little bit. Now I'm going to take some emery cloth and just kind of go over this surface. There's definitely some dings and galling in there. I just want to knock down any of those high spots where hopefully that piece will come off. This race is kind of pressed up into this collar in the back. There we go, that's off now. And now let's see if this will come off. Huh. That's odd. It's like it's captured in there, but I don't see how. It might just be, I don't know, I'm gonna have to work on that a little bit. All right, guys, let's talk about a game plan here. This is another shaft off of another part of the machine, but it has the spline on the end that's in pretty decent shape. So it kind of gives me an idea of what we're going after here. I can cut that on my horizontal milling machine, assuming I can find a cutter that matches that. And it looks like that it's flat in the bottom and it's just tapered on the sides. And I'm going to have to figure out what cutter that is and either find one or make one to be able to cut this project. That's here to say. I think we can do that over on the dividing head on the horizontal milling machine. But I don't want to have to make a whole new screw. I think all I'm going to do is we're just going to make an end, a little short piece here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this one off and we will weld a new piece on. I will go ahead and get the splines cut in it. I'll probably machine it a little bit oversized in the diameter. Go ahead and get my spline cut in it. And then come back after I weld this up and we'll cut all this down smooth, get it the same size, cut the threads and everything over on the lathe and just kind of blend it in there. My thought is for cutting this is that we're going to cut it off probably somewhere, you know, back in here where we have plenty of room to do our work. I will probably drill into this piece over on the lathe. I'll get it set up and just drill maybe, I don't know, a half-inch hole. And whenever I make my piece to go over here, I'll make a little tab that kind of fits up into that hole. That'll help kind of index it in place. And then we'll V it out real good, get a good penetrating weld in there, weld it all up, and then machine this out. And I think it'll be fine. This really doesn't have a super amount of torque when you're turning this thing. All you're doing is just moving that table back and forth. So I think that'll be an acceptable repair. Anyway, that's my game plan. I think first thing I need to do, I've already looked in my collection of horizontal milling cutters and I don't have one that matches this profile. I'm gonna have to do some math and kind of figure out what that is, see if that's something I can source. If not, I can always do a single tooth cutter, just do it at a high-speed steel. It'll be slow, but you know, we can definitely do that as well. So let's, I'm gonna spend a little bit of time and figure this cutter out because before I go to all this, I wanna make sure that I can get that part done and then we'll work on seeing what we can do with the rest of this. Also comment on this thrust bearing here. I cleaned it up and to see if I could find any markings on it. And Fortunately, it is very well marked, and I'm going to see if I can find a replacement for these. Now, this is SKF. Good news is SKF is still around all these years later. This machine, I think my machine was made in 1918, late 19 teens anyway. I don't remember the exact year, but it was in that ballpark. So these bearings are well over 100 years old, and they were original to the machine. The question is does SKF still make this bearing or something, that we can replace it with? Now, it's got a number on it. Depending on which way you read it, it's either 60 or 09. Now, all the lettering is where the bottom is kind of to the inside, so I'm guessing this is going to read an 09. It's kind of upside down the way you're looking at it, but 09 if you can read that. Or if you read it the other direction, it's a number 60. That seems like an odd number, at least in today's world. In 1917, 18, SKF probably didn't have a whole lot of bearings in their line like they do now. So anyway, we'll see if that is something that we can source. If not, the good news is that I don't think these are in terrible shape. We can reuse them. They're just a thrust bearing. It's not like it's a precision bearing of any kind. I think that they would work fine, but if I can find them, and if they're not going to cost an arm and a leg to replace, we may look at replacing those. All right, let's get a quick update of where we're at. I've gone and done a little bit of homework and figured out a few things here, and I think I got a game plan going forward. So first off, on the thrust bearings, I did make some measurements of that. I made a little chicken scratch drawing of it, and I went and started looking for a SKF 09 bearing, and that really didn't bring anything up. I downloaded a copy of the SKF catalog and went to their section on thrust bearings, and they had a style of bearing like this, but it was all in metric sizes. And I got to looking at my measurements. I said, these are not nominal inch sizes. So I went and started doing conversions, and lo and behold, they are metric sizes, which kind of surprises me for a machine that was made in the 19 teens. Everything else on this machine is in inches, but I suspect that SKF, being not a U.S. company, was making bearings in metric sizes at the time, and they just bought them and they machined where these metric bearings would fit on or otherwise inch machine. So anyway, good news is I was able to find it. Its new part number is a 53209, so still has the 09 on the end, but 53209. And again, did a little bit of Googling and a little bit of searching. I found some new ones that you could order. I got on eBay, and I actually found two of these that are new old stock, still in the box. And I was able to purchase both a brand new pair of these, again, new old stock ones, for a little bit less than what one would have cost me. Actually, a good bit less than what one would have cost me new. So anyway, I ended up just going that option. So the thrust bearings, we have found them, we have sourced them, they are on their way. Now, as far as the cutter here to cut this notch in here, let me find my drawing on that. So I took some measurements and figured out some things here. So the bottom, I measured a bunch of these and kind of averaged them. It was about 235 thousandths wide in the bottom. The top of the slot was about 320 thousandths of an inch, and the depth of it is about 300 thousandths of an inch. And I'm using some assumptions here. I mean, all of them were within, 5 thousandths or so of the numbers, but they were kind of all over the board, which doesn't surprise me because this is an old part that's been used for 100 years. So, the measurements probably aren't extremely accurate. I wanted to figure out what the angle was, so using a little bit of trigonometry. It came out to really almost exactly 8 degrees. I mean, it was like 8.06 degrees or something like that. So I'm just going to assume that was a 8-degree angle on one side of that. or a 16-degree included angle if you look at the angle on both sides of it. Like I said, that was so close that I'm sure that that's what the original was. And again, with my little bit of sloppiness in my measurements, just because the part is worn, I'm just going to go with that. So I started looking to see if I could find any horizontal milling cutters that had a 16-degree included angle and a bottom of it that was like 235 or something, and really didn't come up with anything. I did actually find this one in my collection, but this one is got a 29-degree included angle. That's basically an Acme thread profile, and it's close, but not quite. But when I found that one, I said, you know what? Let me dig around a little bit. And so when I discovered that was my other one was an Acme profile, I went over to my high-speed steel cabinet and dug around, because this is a Acme profile that I had ground on the surface grinder for a job sometime in the past. And no, it's not perfect, but it's close. And this is kind of what I think I'm going to do. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind me a cutter, a high-speed steel cutter, just about like this one, but with the correct dimensions, the correct angles, everything else. I have side relief on it and everything else. And I will make a bar that goes into my horizontal milling machine that basically is just going to let this thing rotate. It'll be a single tooth cutter, but it will go through there and just cut that out over on the horizontal milling machine. That's kind of my game plan. If I wanted to get a wheel cutter, like this, I could have one made. It's just going to be too expensive. If I could find one that was already even a used one, I'd probably go that route. But, the odds of finding that are pretty slim. I'm sure that this out there somewhere, but finding one in someone's collection that is exactly like this, that'd be pretty amazing if I was able to find it. So anyway, I'm just going to go with this because it's going to be much cheaper. If this was going to be a production job and I was going to be making lots of these, I'd probably invest in a cutter like this. But for a one-off repair job, I can make this a couple hours time probably on the surface grinder. It's going to be much cheaper than having a cutter made. So that's kind of my game plan on that. So guys, that's kind of where we're at on this today. I was really hoping to get a little bit farther along on this project, but I'm going to have to back up and at least on making this thing. Before I do anything else, I got to make a cutter, and I'm probably just going to make a dedicated video out of that. That's going to be fairly involved. I've done that of some similar videos in the past on grinding precision ground cutters using the surface grinder, but we'll make a special cutter for this. I'm also going to have to make a bar to mount this tool steel in for my horizontal milling machine. I was thinking that I had one, but I can't find it, so no big deal. It's a fairly simple job. I'll just take a piece of stock, and I'll probably use an end mill holder in the horizontal mill machine to hold it on one end. We'll have to turn where we can put a bushing to go into the arbor support on the other end, and we'll drill a hole down through the center. I'll probably use a square broach over there to make it square. We'll drop this tool in there, put a set screw in it to hold it in place, and then that will just rotate this cutter around and around to do it. And again, that's probably going to end up being a separate video, and I don't think I've got a piece of stock here I can make it out of, so I'm going to have to source a piece of stock to make that bar out of as well, but no big deal on that. So more to come on this project. Be an interesting, fun repair, but I think we got a game plan. I think we're going to move forward on it. It's just going to take us a little bit of time to get it done. I'll also mention on the horizontal mill project, the table. I ended up deciding to send it off and have that ground rather than just trying to do it all with hand scraping. Basically, I was going to need to get the top pretty flat, which would have been a huge job to do with the hand scraper, and then grind the ways on the bottom parallel to the top so that everything was in line. And I taught with Cash Masters up at Kinetic, who does a lot of my machine grinding stuff up in Wisconsin. And anyway, he's agreed to do that job for me. And while I was kind of out of the shop a little bit, recovering from my surgery, I got a buddy of mine to come over, and we got that table on a pallet, and it's actually on its way to Wisconsin, if not already there. It may already even be there, but hopefully Cash will get that ground for me turned around. We'll still scrape the bottom. Depending on how much material they have to take off, we may have to put some turkite in there to kind of build it up to get the alignment of all those, the screws and everything just right. We'll just have to wait and see how much material he has to grind out before we make that decision. But I think that's going to be a big improvement there. I was really concerned about the top of that table because, you know, it's 100 years old, it's kind of dinged up. Really wanted to have a nice, make sure it was a dead flat surface to mount stuff on. So having that whole table ground, I think, is going to be the right choice to do there. And so anyway, that's what we're going to do. All right, guys, I think it's going to be a wrap on this one. Sorry we didn't get into any machining today. I was really hoping we would, but we got a game plan going forward, and we're going to get this thing knocked out and hopefully get this HBM back up and running soon. With that, guys, that will be a wrap. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thumbs up and comments, always greatly appreciated. That helps out a lot with the analytics on the channel. And hit that bell icon up there to get notifications. Big, huge thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys are helping with this project, whether you realize it or not, because I'm able to use some of the funds that comes in from Patreon and other people who support the channel. And, you know, that's what's really paying to get this machine redone, and that's what's allowing me to be able to send the table off to Kinetic to get it ground and all that. So thank you to all you guys that do contribute to the site. It really, really, really helps out. And with that, guys, we'll catch you on the next video. Again, thanks for watching.